Hello everyone. On behalf of the GATS tutoring program, I would like to invite all the students to make use of a new initiative, which is the AP tutoring video series. So what we've done in this is our qualified students have basically broken the AP subjects unit by unit into simple 10-minute videos. We hope that these videos will come in handy for your test prep or for the AP exam prep. The subjects that we have worked on so far are AP World, AP Biology, AP Human, AP Psychology, and AP Calc AB. So if you would like to watch more videos like this, please be sure to subscribe to our GATS YouTube channel. And also, if you would like to be part of this initiative, please email us at gats-tutoring@gatamilsangam.org. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sudhiksha Sundrakanabady, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about AP World History Unit 3, and let's get started. So the modern key takeaways. So this is going to be comparing the time period 1450 to 1750s. So during this time, the Americas became a part of a trade network across the world that started from the Columbian Exchange. So new people traveled, new diseases, crops, and cultures were spread throughout the world, and overall this was known as a Columbian Exchange. So it was a unitedness of both the old world and the new world. So the old world would be the Europe and Asia, all those countries, and then the new world would be the US. So both of these different worlds were colliding. Like for example, they had maize and corn in the new world, and then the old world they had different vegetables that were already being used there, like rice. And all these different cultures and diseases and crops were all spread together and spread throughout the world. Then there's also technological improvements in shipbuilding and gunpowder weapons that allowed the European empires to exert their power and dominance in world affairs, allowing them to gain control of different colonies. And this is the way that imperialism started, since they had the power to do so through these weapons. And then the native population in the Americas died by the millions because of the Columbian Exchange. So, like I said before, the Columbian Exchange was a spread of diseases. So many unknown European diseases were spread because of it, and this led to the migration of African people to the New World to work on sugar plantations, since before they were using Native Americans to work on these sugar plantations and exerting their labor. But now, since many of these people were passing away because of exposure to this disease, they had to get labor from a different place. So Africa was a place that they chose, and this created the triangular trade network. Next off, we have the social structures that came to be in America. So this was based on the Columbian Exchange as well. So one of the main overall arcing themes, as you can see through Unit 3, is the Columbian Exchange. So what happened during this time is many Europeans came over, traveled to the New World or the United States, and both married and had kids, had families. So there was a mix of Europeans, African Americans, and the natives, and there was a social hierarchy that came to be because of all this intermarriage. So those include the Peninsulares, the Creoles, the Mestizos, and the Mulattoes. Next up, we have the land-based empires in Asia, which grew greatly, like the Qing Empire of China, the Mughal Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. And like I mentioned before, the main reason that these empires could grow was because of their access to gunpowder weapons. And then maritime powers also grew on the side, like the Portuguese and the Dutch, that spread through voyages of Magellan, da Gama, and Columbus, which we'll learn about later on. And then lastly, we had social changes, which occurred in Europe as the Renaissance, the Protestant Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, which challenged the power or the authority of the Catholic Church and weakened the justification of authority. But it also created prospering times. So the way that this worked was because of these social changes, many people started to rethink the way they thought of normal things. Like for example, the Catholic Church was what many people believed in. Like that was the way that tradition had to be, and since like things like the scientific revolution, it changed the way of thinking, kind of like the Enlightenment, and it weakened the justification of authority, which basically means the word that, for example, kings justify how they became or came to power. So the age of exploration. So Christopher Columbus was a huge deal at this time, and you guys probably already know him. He was an Italian navigator. He attempted to find the westward route to Asia, and he's sponsored by Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, and he promised them wealth and riches and good. And like the main saying that we say now is God, gold, and glory, which is one of the main reasons that Europeans traveled to the New World or the US. And it was the first European to discover the New World. And by the way I'm only saying it's the US just for you guys to know, but at that time it wasn't the US yet, but we'll get on to that in the next units. Next up, the development of the global economy. So the conquest of Constantinople was when the Ottomans conquered the Byzantine capital and entered the Eastern Roman Empire. This gave rise to the Ottoman Empire and it lasted until World War I, and it basically shows how big and strong of an empire it was after the conquest happened. Next up, we have the caravel. So there's three main different ships that were built at the time. These are one of the technological innovations that we talked about before. So there was the caravel, the carrack, and the fleet. So the caravel, it was a little compact ship made by the Portuguese that featured triangular sails, like right here, and a stern post rudder that allowed it to cross oceans. Next, we have the carrack, which is a large sailing vessel with a huge cargo capacity and many masts, like you can see here. And it was stable in the rough seas and it helped through difficult waters and was also developed by the Portuguese. So one of the main purposes of the carrack was because of its big cargo capacity, so it's mainly used for trade. And last of all, we have the Dutch-built ship meant for cargo. It was lightweight and one of the first to be unarmed. So it facilitated the growth of the Dutch maritime empire. Now, what this basically means, or the importance of this, is that during this time, every single ship that they built were armed. They had weapons to aid them in any attack. But during this time, the Dutch invented this different type of ship that only was used to carry cargo from one place to another and mainly for trade and not set up for any attacks. And then now we have the lateen sail, which is also another technological innovation. And it was an important triangular sail that allowed ships to sail against the wind. So it increased the maneuverability and made discovering the different parts of the world or different resources easier to do. So many ships could travel to the New World and see what resources they had to offer. And the last off were the joint stock companies. So this was the investor-backed company that sponsored European exploration and colonization. So examples of those would be the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, and many different companies like these were used to sponsor their voyage to the New World. So the Columbia Exchange, we talked about this a little bit in the previous slides, but it was an exploration of Christopher Columbus. He was the one who started this, and it was interchange of both plants, animals, pathogens, and people between the Old World and the New World. So mercantilism is what came to be after this. So mercantilism was an economic system that maintained the balance of exports and imports. So it basically used the colonies to power the mother country. And what they mean by colonies is basically the Europeans wanted to colonize the New World by exploiting their resources. So as you can see here, this is a mother country, and this is basically used to represent the British. And here are the different colonies, which we'll come to see later on, and they're using the colonies to exploit gold and silver, many different foods and materials. And that was one of the main ways that some of these countries exerted their dominance by having many of these colonies to exert their raw materials and natural resources. Now, last of all, we have sugar cultivation. So this is a resource extraction process that relied on African slave labor, and African indigenous populations were decimated because of the Columbian Exchange. Like I said, the pathogens really affected the populations of the indigenous. And that is it for AP World History Unit 3, and I'll see you back next time. Thank you so much.